In the vast and often turbulent landscape of human creativity, there are figures who loom larger than life itself. Their words, like ancient rivers, carve their way through the centuries, shaping the very bedrock of our culture. One such figure is Percy Bysshe Shelley, a titan of the Romantic era, whose verses captured the wild, untamed spirit of nature and the deepest currents of the human heart. His legacy is one of rebellion, of breathtaking beauty, and of a passion so intense it seemed to burn with an otherworldly fire. But Shelley's story is intertwined with another, a tale of Gothic horror penned by his own brilliant wife, Mary Shelley. While she was conjuring monsters from the spark of life in her masterpiece, Frankenstein, it seems a different kind of phantom was beginning to haunt her husband, a shadow, not of fiction, but of flesh and blood, or so it appeared. It was a presence that whispered of a fate as dark and tempestuous as the very seas that would eventually claim him, a chilling premonition that blurs the line between a poet's fevered imagination and a terrifying, inescapable truth. Join me as we journey back to the sun-drenched shores of 19th century Italy, to a villa where genius and tragedy were destined to collide. Here, amidst the scent of pine and the salt of the Mediterranean, a story unfolded that is as unsettling as any Shelley ever wrote. A story of a man who, in the final, frantic weeks of his life, came face to face with his own demise. It is a tale of premonition, of a spectral double, and a death foretold in the most harrowing way imaginable. The year is 1822. The setting, Casa Magni, a secluded villa on the Gulf of La Spezia in Italy. It should have been an idyll, a sanctuary for Shelley, his wife Mary, and their circle of friends. The turquoise waters of the Ligurian Sea stretched out before them, a seemingly endless expanse of calm and possibility. Here, Shelley sought inspiration, sailing his small schooner, the Don Juan, and pouring his soul into verse. But the tranquility of the landscape was a fragile mask for the turmoil brewing within the poet's mind. He was a man of intense, almost painful sensitivity. His perceptions were heightened, his emotions raw and exposed to the elements, much like the cliffs that met the sea. It was this very sensitivity that made him a genius, but it also made him vulnerable. In the weeks leading up to that fateful summer, his friends and family noticed a change. His usual vibrant energy was replaced by a nervous agitation, a deep-seated anxiety that he could not seem to shake. He was haunted, not by the ghosts of the past, but by a phantom of the present. He began to speak of seeing him, a doppelganger, his own exact double, an apparition that would appear without warning and vanish just as quickly. At first his companions, including his dear friend Edward Williams, tried to reason with him. They attributed these visions to stress, to the laudanum he sometimes took for his ailments, or simply to the overactive imagination of a poet. They saw it as a literary trope made manifest, a figment of a mind that lived more in metaphor than in reality. But for Shelley, the encounters were terrifyingly real. He described seeing his spectral twin walking through the halls of Casa Magni, its gaze meeting his with a silent, unnerving understanding. He would glimpse it at the edge of the woods that bordered their property, a fleeting figure that seemed to mock his every move. The sightings became more frequent, more insistent, each one chipping away at his composure, leaving him pale and shaken. Mary grew deeply concerned, her own heart heavy with a sense of foreboding she could not name. One evening the visions took on a more specific and sinister form. Shelley was standing on the terrace of their villa, the warm night air thick with the scent of jasmine. He was looking out at the sea, a canvas of deepening blues and purples under the twilight sky. Suddenly, he was not alone. His doppelganger was there, standing beside him so closely he could have reached out and touched it. The silence between them was absolute, a void more terrifying than any scream. The apparition, a perfect mirror of Shelley himself, slowly raised a hand. It did not gesture towards the house, nor towards the heavens. With a deliberate chilling finality, its finger pointed directly out to sea. It indicated a specific point on the horizon, a place where the calm surface of the water met the darkening sky. The phantom's eyes, Shelley's own eyes, held a look of profound, sorrowful knowledge. It was not a warning, it felt like a declaration. Shelley stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He cried out, and when Mary and Edward rushed to his side, the terrace was empty. The phantom had vanished, leaving only the poet, trembling and pointing to the spot on the water. He tried to explain what he had seen, the silent, dreadful prophecy of the gesture. He was convinced it was an omen, a sign that his end was near, and that it would come from the very sea he so loved. His friends, though alarmed by his distress, still struggled to believe. They saw a man on the edge of a nervous breakdown, his brilliant mind frayed by exhaustion and anxiety. They offered comfort, rational explanations, and reassurances. The sea was calm, his boat was sound, his fears were unfounded. They urged him to rest, to clear his head of these morbid fantasies. But Shelley could not be consoled. The image of his double pointing to his watery grave was burned into his mind. A deep sense of doom settled over him, a resignation to a fate he now felt was inescapable. He spoke of it openly, a morbid fascination mixing with his terror. He felt he was living on borrowed time, that the final act of his life's drama had been written, and he was merely waiting for the curtain to fall. He continued to sail the Don Juan, almost as if daring the prophecy to come true, a fatalistic dance with the destiny he believed had been revealed to him. The days turned into weeks. The sun beat down, the sea remained placid, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed as though Shelley's fears might have been just that, fears. The intensity of the vision began to fade from the memories of his friends, dismissed as a strange but passing episode. But Shelley did not forget. The shadow of the pointing finger lingered over every beautiful sunset, every gentle wave that lapped the shore. Then, on the 8th of July, a mere handful of weeks after the encounter on the terrace, Shelley, Edward Williams, and a young boat hand set sail in the Don Juan to return to Casa Magni from a nearby port. The weather, which had been fair, turned with shocking speed. A sudden violent squall rose up from the sea, a furious tempest that ambushed the small, unsuspecting vessel. The sky turned black, the wind howled, and the waves rose like angry mountains. The Don Juan was no match for the storm's fury. It was overwhelmed and swallowed by the violent sea. There were no survivors. Days later, when the bodies washed ashore, it was discovered that the tragedy had occurred in the Gulf of La Spezia. The location of the wreck, as determined by those who found it, was almost precisely the same spot on the water to which Shelley's phantom had pointed from the terrace just weeks before. The coincidence was too stark, too chilling to ignore. The vision on the terrace was no longer a figment of a poet's troubled mind. It had become a prophecy fulfilled in the most tragic and horrifying detail. The specter had not been a warning of what might be, but a ghastly preview of what was to come. Shelley had not just imagined his death, he had, in a way, witnessed it first. The story of Percy Bysshe Shelley's final days leaves us standing at the edge of a profound mystery, looking out into the same murky waters that claimed him. The accounts of his doppelganger, particularly the final chilling vision on the terrace, are too specific, too eerily accurate to be easily dismissed as mere delusion. It forces us to confront a question that transcends the boundaries of literature and delves into the very nature of consciousness and fate. Was this a tragic, but ultimately explainable coincidence? Or did Shelley, a man of unparalleled sensitivity, somehow tap into a current of time and truly foresee his own end? Perhaps his poetic soul, so attuned to the subtle energies of the world, possessed a kind of perception that we do not yet understand. Could his mind, burdened by anxiety, have created a self-fulfilling prophecy, a psychological phantom that led him to his doom? Or are there darker, more supernatural forces at play, a true spectral harbinger, a tear in the veil between the living and what lies beyond? The poet who wrote of spirits, shadows, and the sublime forces of nature may have become the subject of his own most haunting verse. The answer, like Shelley's body, was lost to the sea, leaving us with only speculation and a deep, unsettling wonder. What do you believe was at the heart of this tragedy? Was it a trick of a brilliant but troubled mind? A chilling case of destiny? A genuine premonition? Or something else entirely? The line between imagination, psychology, and the supernatural is often blurred, and in Shelley's case, it seems to have dissolved completely. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I am keen to know what you make of the poet who predicted his own death.